If you do all or most of the exercises in this book, and you should, you'll have a wide resource of ideas and fragments from which to draw or be inspired the next time you're looking for a fiction project. Not that we want to make things too easy for you, but at the back of this book, you will find a cheat sheet that gives you a checklist of many of the key points on writing craft that appear in this book. You may want to keep the cheat sheet handy when writing your next work of fiction. You will also find numerous passages from works of fiction cited throughout this book. If one or more of these works looks interesting to you, you should get your hands on a copy and read it. If the work is a novel or novella, the title will appear in italics. And if the work is a short story, the title will appear in quotes. A number of the short stories that appear in this book can be found in the Vintage Book of Contemporary American Short Stories, edited by Tobias Wolff. In particular, you should read the short story Cathedral by Raymond Carver, preferably in tandem with reading this book. Cathedral is referred to repeatedly throughout this book, and having read the story will enhance your understanding of these references. You will find Cathedral reprinted in its entirety in the appendix. Last, you'll find additional information on the art and business of writing at the Gotham Writers Workshop website, www.writingclasses.com. Chapter 1. Fiction: The What, How, and Why of It by Alexander Steele. Hello. You look familiar. As the Dean of Faculty at Gotham Writers Workshop, I'm surrounded by people with a desire to create fiction. On a daily basis, I work with our fiction teachers, folks so talented and intelligent that they could have made a killing in most any field, but instead have opted to pursue the precarious life of a fiction writer. Frequently, I observe our fiction classes, some in regular classrooms filled with students from New York City and the surrounding areas, some in cyberspace classrooms filled with students from all over the United States and from far away as Africa, China, and Australia. I see the whole wide world in these classes. Doctors, lawyers, accountants, janitors, policemen, undertakers, housewives, retirees, students, psychics, zookeepers, and everything else. It's a fact. A staggering number of people out there harbor an intense desire to create fiction. Why? Though this chapter will cover more than a philosophical inquiry into why we write fiction, as the title promises, let me see if I can find an answer to this vexing question, preferably by the chapter's end. A brief definition of fiction. Let's start with a simpler question. What is fiction? In the broadest sense, fiction is simply a made-up story. The business of making up stories has been going on for a long time. Somewhere in the shadowy past, our cave-dwelling ancestors began conjuring stories and telling them to each other. The tradition grew, and some of these stories eventually attained the bestseller status of myths, tales destined to be passed on through generations and to migrate across continents and to shape the way people thought. At some point, some of these stories started to get written down with the intention that they would be read. An enterprising Mesopotamian writer chiseled the Epic of Gilgamesh into stone tablets some 4,000 years ago. And if you think revision was difficult on a typewriter. Anyway, this brings us to the more narrow definition of fiction. A made-up story told in prose with words alone. Words alone. That's the unique challenge and wonder of written fiction. There's no actor or storyteller using gesture and inflection. No painter or filmmaker showing settings or close-ups. Everything is done with those little symbols we call letters, which are melded into words, which multiply to form sentences and paragraphs. And by some alchemical process, those words interact with the reader's imagination in such a way that readers are taken inside the reality of a story. Like Alice.